Hey MVPs, Rico Knows here. Going to talk to you guys about UFC 311. If you aren't aware, we're going to get back to doing UFC fight cards the way we do it in the offseason, meaning I give away the first fight of the fight card and the main event for free. So if you're a free member on the channel, remain a free member and keep your eye out for the free picks, if you will. You won't see all the locks on the card. You won't see all the parlays, all the props, and everything that we're hitting. Obviously, last year we hit at 83% on locks, 66% on leans, and the parlays were at about 56%, and props as well. And overall, I think it was 63% money line across 42 different fight cards. So we had a really good year in the UFC this year. Started off a little rusty. It's just unfortunate. A lot of underdogs won, didn't predict them, and predicted the wrong favorites to win, stuff like that. Nonetheless, we got UFC 311, Makhachev versus Sarukian, Arman Sarukian and Islam Makhachev. It is a rematch, and the whole fight card's here. Some fights have been canceled, some things have been moved, but the way it works now is I'm going to do individual videos for every single fight. I'm going to break them down for you and tell you what to do, so you guys will see a lot of videos being posted on Patreon, on YouTube. Thank you guys for being MVPs, for those of you who are year-round MVPs. Nonetheless, let's talk about this particular fight here. We have Tagir Ulanbekov, 15-2, versus Clayton Carpenter, undefeated American, 8-0, okay? What I want to say about this fight is we're gonna break down each fighter for who they are, but I need you guys to understand that I was very surprised to see Tagir Ulanbekov in the early prelims fighting for the first time. I think the only reason he's fighting down here is because he's fighting Carpenter, who is still trying to figure himself out, Clayton Carpenter. So let's talk about this for a second. This fight card is loaded. You know that the third fight on the fight card, Yuri Prochazka and Jamal Hill, this could be like the main event fight card on other fight nights, if you will. This would be the main event, even on a pay-per-view. So to see all three of these guys in one fight card is pretty amazing. Okay, we'll start talking about Clayton Carpenter first. Undefeated kid, 28 years old. I call him a kid because he doesn't have a lot of fight experience. He hasn't been fighting all that long. He's only got 8 fights underneath him in the UFC. He's only got 2, right? Dana White Contender Series and then 2. But he's only got 8 professional fights. Now, if you know anything about his background, he's been a combat fighter his entire life. I think since like the age of 5. And he talks about it. And if you interview this guy or you watch interviews with this guy, he is going to tell you he's the best fighter in the world. He's going to tell you, and you should probably think this way. He's just convinced the fight's going to go somewhere, and that's where I want to be. Whether it's on the mat, it's standing, or whatever. He's a world champion in X amount of different martial arts. I don't even know what the hell he was talking about. He said he's won everything. He's been winning all these fights. So the way he looks at other fighters is, you're not as experienced as I am. You're not ready for what I bring to the table. I'm going to say this. He trains at MMA Lab. MMA Lab, I have a lot of respect for this gym. We're talking about Kyler Phillips, Benson Henderson, Mario Batista, some really good fighters at MMA Labs. Sean O'Malley, some really accomplished guys, Alex Bruce Lee, Caceres. I pulled up all their guys. And I got a lot of respect for this gym and how they train fighters. Remember, we saw Jose Delgado fighting out of on Dana White Contender Series this last season. So we've been seeing all these guys, and they're doing well. I would equate MMA Lab, and no shade to their gym, okay? I would equate their gym to a group of 5 team in the Sun Belt, if you will. A group of 5 team in the Sun Belt. Think of Troy and how great Troy is. And I'm using a college football analogy because most of my MVPs are college football guys. So this is Troy, and you're going up against the SEC. You're going up against the guy who trains with every Dagestani wrestler there ever was, and they have a known pedigree and consistency in big fights. Now, Clayton Carpenter himself, if you look at his body of work, now I only have 3 fights that I go back and watch all their fights if I can, film whatever. And I know every fighter, but I just want to rehash what I saw before. And the last time we saw Clayton Carpenter in the cage, I told you he was a lock. Now, it was his UFC debut, and it wasn't his debut, it was his second fight. But I told you he was a lock against Lucas Rocha. And Lucas Rocha, I believe he's he's 17-2. Is that the kid? Yeah, 17-2. He was 17-1 at the time. And I talked to you guys about how I felt, even though he was 17-1. I'm going to fade a 17-1 fighter and tell you it's a lock. Meaning I'm going to predict this guy's going to only get the second loss in his career. And I'm guaranteeing it, right? And the locks are at 83%. So it's like, hey, if I tell you it's a lock, believe in it. And it's an early prelim fight. It's pretty scary. Now, the reason I felt so strongly about this kid is when you watch him, he fights with angles. And his angles are really smooth, man. Fighting's all about angles and levels, okay? And when you see a boxer, and this is a Golden Gloves championship boxer, a Muay Thai, 4-time Muay Thai world champion, supposedly. I don't know how many worlds they fight in, but everybody's a world champion. I don't know if they have 6 tournaments a year and you all get to claim to be world champions. I don't know how it works. But I can just tell you that he's a Muay Thai champion, he's a boxing champion, and he has a certain amount of pedigree on the mat. Even when you see him in these fights with Rocha and Juan Camarillo Ronderos, these two dudes right here, when you watch him and he submits them, the minute he's on his back and he's not really pulling guard, but he's got them in his guard, he's immediately fighting at angles. And I talk about something SS. I say sweep or submit. And you can't do either one of those flat on your back, right? My students, I teach them, we're trying to sweep. And if you're trying to sweep the guy off you and you're flat on your back, it takes an absorbent amount of effort and energy. And the only way you're really going to sweep him is if you're physically dominant to that person. You should have never been on bottom in the first place. But if you're on your side, you can do sweeps, and you can do them beautifully with minimal effort. And this kid just figures out a way to be at the right angles. And being at those angles helps your triangle chokes. It helps your arm bars, or at least transitioning to these things. He also does the same thing when he's standing. He's just a little off center. He knows how to move a little bit. And it's something to be impressed with, his angles. What I would say is he's 125 pounds. And this is a flyweight, 125. You should be moving around like a fucking bumblebee, right? Or like a housefly. Like, they should be so fast and the way you move, and he's not. He's not exactly moving with all the agility in the world. I'm not saying he has the dexterity of a rhino or anything. I'm just saying he kind of sits in these pockets. He pivots that lead foot and he bangs. Like, he's going to bang that kick. He's going to throw some kicks. They're going to hurt. He want to fight with a head kick? Yeah, that's happened. But more importantly, I watch him throw these leg kicks, these low kicks, these calf kicks, these thigh kicks. And it's just like he's bringing the base, like a Louisville Slugger. The problem with that is you're going to get caught with a straight right hand from Tagir. Tagir's got real length. And if you saw the fight, and you can go back and watch this if you have ESPN Plus, go back and watch the Edgar Cherez fight. And now Edgar Cherez, he's from Mexico, Baja California, Mexicali. He fights out of Tijuana. And when I watch Edgar, if you watch Edgar in his interview, Edgar says, I'm a gangster. I'm a fighter. I'm a Mexican fighter, and I'm a gangster. And Edgar lost that fight on the Dana White Contender Series. And he still fights, and that was 2.5 years ago. He still fights in the UFC today. How many people you know who lost on Dana White Contender Series are still in the UFC today? It's like a handful of guys. Most people who lost, they become housewives and stay-at-home moms in Canada, right? Shout out to the minus 1,000 chick with all the muscles. I forget her name. But my point is Edgar went out there as a 33-year-old man and put the work on this kid. Maybe he was younger. But Edgar put the work on him in that first round. Literally bullied him. Beat him up. Now, Edgar is taller, longer, uses his size and everything. And the only way, and it was a unanimous decision for Clayton here, but the only way Clayton Carpenter was able to win this fight was to actually get a takedown and just kind of hold position, almost like stalling, right? He didn't posture up. He didn't try to progress. He didn't try to pass the half guard, try to get to the mount. He didn't try to submit. Nothing. No arm triangle, no head and arm, nothing. He just sat there and kind of rested for a little bit, and for the last 30 seconds of the second round, he starts throwing elbows, and then he wins the round. We get to the third round, Edgar's a little gassed, a little tired, and the kid's got good cardio. He's in shape. Remember, he's young. He works out. And I noticed that Clayton Carpenter does not lose cardio, which is fine. So cardio is a weapon. His angles are a weapon. And he did find a way to get takedowns and win his fights. Now, these other two fights, I don't put a lot of value into them because these two guys weren't ready to grapple with him. They just weren't on that level. They weren't ready to wrestle or grapple with him, so they got submitted. They were fish out of water, essentially. So it just doesn't really move me. And now you're going to fight a guy like Tagir, who, and by the way, that Edgar fight, he won the fight. He doesn't wear damage well. Let me just say that. He doesn't wear damage well. His eye will swell up immediately. He had a mouse under his eye. His hair, and I don't, guys, it's about judges. His hair goes back in his head when he gets jabbed and he gets hit. His head, it looks like a cartoon. It's just boom, boom, boom. And that doesn't look good for the judges. No, that does not look good. The judges will be out there saying, man, this guy right here was ready to fight. He was ready to scrap for another 3 rounds. Now, he was tired, but his face looks fine. Now, you're fighting Tagir. The last time we saw Tagir, I faded him. I thought he was going to lose. And by the way, he's a left-handed fighter. Let me be clear on this. He's a world champion Sambo combat wrestler. What is Sambo? Sambo is essentially Russian grappling, Russian wrestling. And if you're a combat Sambo wrestler, you're pretty good. Guess what? This is one of the more dominant forms of martial arts out there in the world. When I was teaching hand-to-hand combat to military soldiers for 20 years, when I was teaching fighting, we wanted to teach Sambo wrestling. We did. We even we sent people to a bunch of different classes, if you will, but what we couldn't find was certified Sambo instructors in America. So we couldn't teach it. Then we had to settle for jiu-jitsu. And I'm not saying jiu-jitsu is bad. I'm just letting you know how we transitioned to what martial arts we taught. And it was because we couldn't find certified Sambo instructors, if you will. Well, they got them in droves out in Russia. It's their martial art, right? It's what they do. It's like finding a wrestling coach in America. There's wrestling coaches everywhere. So this young man is a beast. What I will tell you, when I saw him, I went back and I did all my research, and I saw him fight against Tim Elliott. That's why I faded him against Cody Durden, because I saw, hey, Tim Elliott's a crafty wrestler. Cody Durden, crafty wrestler, all this stuff, right? But if you go back and watch that fight with Cody Durden is an American guy, American kid. He trains with some really good people. Right? He's one of the best in one of the best fight camps in the world and all this stuff. Cody Durden gets clocked, straight up dropped. I didn't see that coming. He couldn't handle the straight right that was coming back at him, the straight left that was coming back at him. And that left cross was real. And he buckles him. But the thing is there's a point where Tagir gets Cody in a guillotine. And Cody does some crafty work and reverses the guillotine. Remember, guillotine is a blood choke. If you get your head opposite of your trapped head, your body opposite of your trapped head, it turns into an air choke and you're safe. So you would find the knee, get to the other side of the knee, and you'll be straight. Whole nother talk. But the point I'm trying to make is Durden's getting crafty in there. And as soon as Tagir's on his back, because Durden ends up on top, there's an elevator sweep. He does it twice. It's so easy. It's so sweet. It's so easy. Tagir understands dominant body positions, and he just gets out of trouble. Now, I don't like the guy. I just want to be clear. I don't like the guy. I don't like these beards they rock. I don't like that whole team, the way they act. But they are some very consistent fighters. You guys know, we talk about it all the time. We talk about the fighting nerds out of Brazil. Fighting nerds all last year won us a ton of money. Why? And we found out you trained with the fighting nerds. We took you, and you're going to win the fight. We said, hey, don't bet against the fighting nerd. Why? They just have a really good camp and a really good team. Well, that's what you're seeing here. Tagir is showing up with a known pedigree, a known ability to fight. And the one thing that Edgar Chairez did to Clayton Carpenter is Edgar Chairez beat him up like a man versus a boy for that whole first round. Just said, hey, yo, I'm going to put in work. You're just a little kid working in a gym. I'm a grown man. Let me show you what grown man muscles can do. Now, Edgar eventually got tired, couldn't get up off the ground or off the mat. He got taken down and couldn't recover from that. I don't see that happening to Tagir. I think Tagir is going to use his length. I think Tagir is going to get his dominant body positions, and if he doesn't, he's going to sweep. But I think Tagir can even submit this guy just in a regular guillotine. He can do other things. Like, Tagir is just a beast, bro. So, and if Tagir gets your back, it's a rear naked choke, and it's over. If he gets your back, it's a wrap. I'm letting you know that now. So, how do I see this fight going? All right. Tagir, money line, It's a minus 325. Oh, Rico, that's not a big deal. Da, da, da. Now, listen, guys. Fighting is fighting. Nothing's guaranteed. A lot of respect for these men. And you got to understand that this is not college football. This is not 60 minutes of competition and back and forth. Who's going to score? You're going to score. No. A fight is first one to score a touchdown wins. That's how it is. If I can use an analogy for you guys, first one to score a touchdown wins. And if it's a heavyweight fight, we're on the 2-yard line, right? It's just you have to pick and choose where you're at. So I understand the money on Clayton Carpenter. I do. I understand the idea that this undefeated fighter, this American with a world of ability to strike, great angles, and understanding he's got a gas tank and he's gonna. But I just see a kid who's won 2 easy fights because the other guys didn't know how to wrestle or grapple. They didn't know how to grapple at all. And then the one fight in the Dana White Contender Series where he fought another journeyman, if you will, a soon-to-be journeyman in Edgar Chairez, he was getting beat up bad. Like, he won that fight 29-28 unanimous. Nobody's debating it. He won the second and third round. That first round, he looked outclassed. So seeing him fight Tagir Ulanbekov is to me, it's an easy one. I'm going to take Tagir to minus 325. Here's where we get sneaky. You can parlay it, or you can go out here and do this crazy shit, right? You can sprinkle this thing. It's plus 430. Now, I apologize if you guys can't see everything on the screen because of how I'm recording this. I might need to make these boxes. We're going to learn. I'm going to need to make these boxes bigger so you guys can see what we're seeing, the numbers. Let me do that. Hey, I hate to make sausage in front of you. I don't care. I can make it the whole screen if I'm gangster, but I just don't want to block the parlay stuff. Let me see here if I can do this, and I'll do that. I don't care, dude. I'm Rico. You guys know the deal. Let's do that, and we'll get rid of that background keyboard, and I'll make my window smaller. I'm doing this mid video. Don't give a flying flip. Y'all don't even need to see me that well. I don't care, dude. All right, so shout out to these guys, but if I had to pick a fighter in this fight, I'm going to parlay Tagir, and that's going to be a parlay with the other locks on the fight card. If you're an MVP, you'll know who the other locks are. And then I'm going to take Tagir by submission. I would sprinkle that, and that's a prop. So let me show you guys the chart here for a second. Here's your first time seeing the chart. This is your free video. If you're going to see the chart, man, I can't have it like this. We can't have these pictures over the chart. We'll figure it out, man. We'll figure it out. Don't sweat it. I will figure it out, guys. Nonetheless, Ulanbekov plus 430. It's a value bet. Remember, value bets, 1 in 5 on the last fight card. Careful. They're going to be hard to hit, and it's a plus 430, so that's crazy. But the lock itself, here you go, minus 325, and we'll get that right. Eventually, our locks will take over. 40% now, they'll be 80 by the end of the year. So we're taking Tagir. Be filling this out, making a video for every single one of these fights. Your friends don't know, but Rico knows. Good luck, y'all.